Sorry, Hope, but I have to disagree with you with that one.
I'm actually with Keyframe on that one, Hope.
Come on, guys. All I said, it would have been interesting to see how Princess Cadence would have been included in that event.
Oh, you young lousbuben and your modern-day pony talk. Now sit down and listen to old Ben ANY tell you about the worst and best of when the show started. Now listen up, young ones.
You know that I'm older than you, right?
I couldn't overhear you always arguing who among your fancy new alicorns is best princess.
That's actually not even close to what we were talking about.
I can still remember the good old times when I just became a brony. Back then we only needed 2 alicorn princesses and Lauren was still running the show.
Didn't you only discover the show when Season 2 was already airing?
Hush now, kiddos. I still remember the early days of Friendship is Magic when only Twilight was allowed to write a friendship report and did so at the end of every episode.
So only Season 1 then?
Precisely. You know, back then the worst the girls had to face was an angry griffin.
Well, that and stuff like the Paris sprites destroying half of Ponyville and a Hydra trying to eat Twilight and her friends.
Really? That was during Season 1? Exactly, young one. Or the time when Twilight lost her mind because she had missed a friendship report.
Now that's definitely Season 2.
Yeah, Lesson 0 was the big opening episode to Season 2 after the adventure arc with Discord.
How can you screw that up? Isn't that one supposed to be one of your all-time favorites?
It has been a while.
Yeah, obviously.
Seriously, dude, when was the last time you watched the old season?
Well...
Oh my Luna. You haven't even watched most of them in years, have you?
He's so cute when he stammers and desperately tries to save face.
Really? All your talk about how the show and the characters have evolved and you can't even remember the first seasons?
Okay, I admit it. I barely watched an episode of the first 2 seasons since I started this channel. Now, what do you expect me to do? Sit down for an entire weekend, marathon the entire first season with the 3 of you and maybe some random guests while discussing and rating every single episode? Oh, crap.
One weekend of marathoning the entire first season with Keyframe, Grasshope, BerlinBronyANdy, and some other random guests, as well as discussing and rating every single episode later.
Hello out there, this is AnYPony and welcome to my top 5 yay and nay list of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 1 episodes. To make one thing absolutely clear before we even start, there will be 5 worst episodes. There have to be. If you make a list ranking stuff, no matter how great every single entry is on its own, those at the bottom of the list are worse than everything above. Or to put it more positively, those are not as good as the others. And I mean it. I used a ranking system that allowed, in theory, an episode to end up with a negative score. While I actually gave out negative ratings every now and then for one category or another, overall not a single episode ended up with a score below 0. Admittedly, my top 5 nays came rather close to 0, but they all stayed above it and are more of a meh to me than something I'd call bad. In case you're wondering what I scored the episodes by, my major categories have been the narrative, in the sense of overall writing, story structure and plot, the characters, how have they been displayed, did they grow in an episode, and last but not least, the name giver of my channel, the entertainment. How funny / exciting / immersive was an episode. Stuff like songs, visual highlights and so on also played into that one. My secondary categories were the conflict, was it in and of itself interesting, how was it handled in the episode, the dialogue, focused mainly on the writing but also takes the performance into account, and finally, mainly used as a tiebreaker, the moral. What have we been, according to Twilight's friendship report, supposed to take with us from the episode? By the way, I included a link to the entire scoring table in the script, linked in the description as always. Okay, now I want to give one honorable mention before I get to the top list itself. The pilot episodes. I already made a full-length video about them in which I explain my mixed feelings towards those episodes in detail, so I'm going to keep it short right now. All I want to say is that while this two-parter actually did not really well in the face of the just mentioned categories, I still hold it in very high regard since it is the foundation of MLP as we know it nowadays. They turned a rather harmless and later even outright stupid franchise into something great. Therefore, I am really happy the pilot scored high enough to stay out of my Neigh list. Instead, the list starts with number 5.
Neigh!
All's well that end well. The narrative, the entertainment and, believe it or not, even the characters have all been fine in my eyes. I could understand Spike's struggle and related to Twilight's mistakes as a parental figure in that situation. All not outstanding, but good. The dialogue could have been a bit more polished though. What really hurt the episode was the implication of the conflict. It is a run-of-the-mill jealousy story, though this kind of conflict is already a bit overused. So it becomes even more important to execute it well in order to get it even above meh levels. Sadly, with its extreme bluntness, literally turning Spike into a villain, the conflict turned into the episode's big flaw. And we all know that MLP is capable of taking an overused theme like, let's say, stage fright, and turn it into something amazing. Number 5.
Yay!
Sonic Rainboom. As I just said, the conflict in that episode isn't really something new. A character hiding her insecurities behind a boastful facade, a friend wanting to help but accidentally ending up exacerbating the situation. We have all seen that before, but barely as well executed as in that episode. It all develops so naturally, and while you can see it coming, you cannot point at any moment in the episode and be like, here it should have been different! Well, except maybe Rarity's drag queen makeup, but that's besides the point. Aside from the simple but brilliantly executed conflict, we also got treated to extraordinary good story and character writing. And the rest was all really good as well. Truly one of the best. Number 4.
Neigh!
Over a Barrel. Nothing really wrong with that one, but nothing really good either. Most of it was simply meh. Admitted, it got a few chuckles out of me and I never was bored, and the dialogue was also good in general. But overall, the episode was held back by some shortcomings, like the infamous scene in which Pinky single-hoofedly caused the already hesitant buffaloes to attack after all, or this other thing.
Look at them! They are sharpening their horns. Those are deadly instruments. Versus pie.
Settlers remove those trees?
Why is everybody? He got hit by a pie while he was about to run over. A pony, to kill the pony, and he got hit by a pie.
You should have just heard ANY. He was just, every time the word pies was getting mentioned, he would just like break a piece of furniture.
It's like so stupid. If it would just be the pie, it would be fine. But the problem is, it's not just pie. It is pie with deadly sharpened horns, and they make a big. I need to cook.
Using pies as weapons, I know, it's ridiculous.
Number 4.
Yay!
Party of One. While it will take nearly one more complete season until we get a really good look into what makes Pinky tick during the Smile song, here we get a first glance into the deeper psyche of the party pony, how her own happiness depends on how happy she can make others. However, this aspect on itself was not worthy of an extraordinary rating in the category of character. What really made it stand out was the scene in which Pinky goes all bonkers. The writing and voice acting of her split personality haven't become one of the most iconic Pinky moments for nothing. And I am not talking about cupcakes, especially since the novel had already been written when this episode aired, therefore is completely unrelated to Party of One. Bet a bunch of you didn't know that. So yeah, that scene earned the episode not only an extraordinary rating in character, but also in dialogue. Throw in all the other shenanigans and we get a top score in entertainment as well. Number 3.
Neigh!
The Ticketmaster. Another one I already talked about in length in a different video, so to keep it short. It is really entertaining and the dialogue in certain scenes is absolutely spot on. However, the characterization of the main 6, the conflict and its solution in form of the moral have actually been substandard. All of Twilight's friends have been turned into rather uniform, manipulative, greedy plot holes. Flank holes? You see, ponifying every term can get rather confusing at times. Anyways, in terms of character development, this episode was more of a step backwards. The conflict, how it got handled by the characters, and its solution have been horse apples. If not everybody can have it, nobody should. That sounds like something an ironically altruistic villain would scream before hitting the destroy everything button. Avoiding conflict is not a valuable life lesson. It is the opposite. Number 3.
Yay!
Suited for success. I really like Rarity, and this was her defining episode, giving us some extraordinary character development for her, but also in a smaller amount for all her friends. The episode keeps you entertained throughout its runtime, with all the characters' antics, the song, its reprisal, a healthy dose of humor, and last but not least, stunning visuals. Finally, the conflict. As mundane as it is when you think about it, Rarity getting caught up in trying to please everybody and her friends getting carried away in unthankful demands, once again it all shines to its fantastic execution. Don't just take my word for it. Check out Tommy Oliver's 15-minute video in which he explains why from his point of view, Suited for Success is even the best episode period. Number 2. The Showstoppers. To be honest, I never shared the despair many bronies seem to have for that episode. I consider it enjoyable popcorn. I actually go this far and say character development, entertainment, conflict and dialogue are all good. So how the hell did it end up in the spot of the second least good, to avoid calling it second worst, episode of the season? Well, the narrative is simply a mess. We start out with them getting the treehouse, then some random disconnected shenanigans with them trying to get their cutie mark, suddenly surprise plot point out of nowhere. After that we get the preparations for the show itself, and the resolution with the CMC not learning anything. So yeah, as soon as I put my critical glasses on, I can't deny that this episode is quite weak in regards to story structure. Number 2.
Yay!
Cutie Mark Chronicles. 6 unique origin stories, all embedded into a 7th story, framing all those sub-stories smoothly together in only 22 minutes? If I wouldn't know Cutie Mark Chronicles existed, I would say such an endeavor is doomed from the get-go. But somehow Larson made it work. If you would ask me for an example of what I mean when I say extraordinary narrative, I'd point you right there. Or to my number 1 yay. In addition, it also delivers a lot of character development by showing us what the main 6 were like as fillies. And it all has been an entertaining ride from beginning to end, making this the first episode getting high score in all 3 main categories. It even managed to compensate for the complete lack of a moral. Because let's face it, a cheesy speech about how there was a magical connection between you and your friends years before you even met has no real life application for the kids watching the show whatsoever.
Now, what will be ANY's official worst episode of the first season? Did he finally see the light and accept the teachings of the Digibro that Ghostbusters was the worst episode of the first 3 seasons? Will he share Voice of Reason's despair for bridal gossip? Did the Ren and Stimpy askew humor of the Bird and a Hoof get to him? Will he join Robin0928 in his hate for Gilda and Griffin the Brush-Off? Nope, he went with what the fox says. Wow, pow, 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 pow. Wow, pow, 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 pow.
Thought that'd be funny to add.
Number 1. The Stairmaster. If you would have asked me before I did my marathon through the season and came up with my rating system, what would be the bottom episode of season 1, I would probably not have guessed that one. But here I am, full of loathing and anger toward Fluttershy and the CMC. No, not really. As I said in the beginning, I don't consider a single episode of season 1 bad. The Stairmaster simply turned out to be the least impressive in regards to what I'm looking for in an episode. The CMC have been despicable most of the time, Fluttershy was rather weak, the dialogue was below show standards, and the conflict, how to babysit the CMC? I don't know. There is no clear conflict the episode resolves around, and the blurry something that is there is rather underwhelming. To be fair though, structure-wise the story is fine and kept me entertained enough to keep watching. Now for the obligatory last-minute honorable mentions before the number 1 spot. Applebug Season for being the best AJ episode to date. Feeling Pinky Keen for being the most entertaining episode that did not make it into the top 5. Fall Weather Friends for extraordinary character development and entertainment.
And now for the moment you've all been waiting for.
Number 1. The best night ever. I mean, do I really have to explain that one? It says best right there in the title. So we get a really well structured narrative telling an individual story for each of the main 6 while smoothly switching back and forth between them, connecting them all during Pinky's song and eventually letting them all come together in one big cathartic bang. The entire episode is one firework of entertainment while simultaneously showing us the main 6 desperately trying to overcome the disappointment of their dreams they had for this night falling apart. That is one hell of a conflict probably everybody can relate to. So there you have it, my top 5 Yay and Nay episodes of Season 1. Now it is time for you guys to go nuts in the comments providing your own top and bottom episodes as well as the criteria you chose them by. This is ANY saying see you soon.